Okay, we're back for the East Lansing City Council regular council meeting of Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Here.
Mayor Brookover.
Here. Do we have a motion relative to the agenda?
I have a motion. Mayor, I move approval of the agenda with one change, which is to move item 5.6 onto the consent agenda as item 3.8. And that was at the request of the planning department.
And that would be for the purposes of a deferral?
That would be the item for the purposes of deferral, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, is there a second on that motion? Seconded by Meadows. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We have before us the minutes of the regular council meeting of 18 February 2025. Do we have a motion with regard to those minutes?
So moved. Move approval.
Moved by Altman, seconded by?
Second.
By Meadows. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the minutes are approved unanimously. Item number 2.1, these are communications. 2.1, all written communications received by council are posted on the online agenda packet, which is on the website. Item 2.2, communications from the audience. I have 3 slips here. The first is Ms. Ciarto.
Hello, I'm Allie Ciarto. I am the Vice Chair for the Arts Commission, so I'm just here to add some context to our proposals for changes to Ordinance 1339, which is up for discussion tonight. So the first thing that we wanted to explain was in the recommended changes, we recommended changing some things to just take out contradictions where the ordinance actually contradicts itself currently. So for example, right now there is a whole definition of how the artwork that we fund can be on public property under certain circumstances. And then it has a line that says you can't have it on private property. So we've just taken that out to make that more clear. It also has a part that describes art as performance and then essentially says that it can't be done unless it's permanent. So we also wanted to make that more clear. So that was the first goal, to remove ordinance contradictions. The second was to expand art to better align with just the widely accepted definition of art today. And Barbara's going to talk a little bit more about this next. But essentially, currently we're only allowed to fund permanent visual art, and we would like to be able to fund art in other forms. For example, musical art, written art, to better align with how other cities see art. So for example, some of you know that Lansing has a poet laureate, and they've done some work with poetry where they've put it on the sidewalks and they've put it in other forms that we're not currently allowed to do with the current ordinance. We have also addressed digital art and photography, just as that has changed, allowing that to be reproduced because that's the nature of the form. And then we also have some proposals to make art just more accessible. Like I said, it's not just visual, there's musical art, there's poetry, performing arts, etc. And we want that to be accessible to everybody to do what some other cities are doing. And then finally, we'd like to be able to use art to bring the community together in ways that could involve events, bringing in teachers to teach art, just generally to meet our goals, which Barbara will talk about, to bring people together through art. So we'll be around if you have any questions later, but I'll let Barbara get into the next part.
Thank you. Ms. Warges?
Good evening. I'm Barbara Warges, and I am the chairperson of the Arts Commission. Allie and I have been on the Arts Commission for the last 5 years. Just one more to go, I guess. But a few years ago, we began talking about the importance of having a 5-year plan for the Arts Commission so that we know what we're planning to do, we know where we're looking, we know how to think about what it is that will make the most impact in this community. We reviewed, because we were working on a 5-year plan, we reviewed plans from all around the country, looking at what they've done, how they've done it, how they bring the community in to work with them. And we've really come up with a number of ideas. And as we, again, looked back at the ordinance for the public art ordinance, it was problematic for us in terms of making it as open as possible to the community that we live in. We also reviewed research from the Americans for the Arts Association, and they've provided a lot of information to us about what people are looking for in their art community, what that kind of art they want to see, what they want to do to participate. And we've come up with a number of ideas as options for that, and we're hoping that the changes we'd like to see made in the ordinance will enable us to engage those neighborhoods and communities with what we'd like to see happen and what they would like to see happen. So as Ally said, we will be here to answer any questions you might have, but I appreciate your hearing us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Pat Riley?
Good evening. I'm Pat Riley from, I think I say my address, 1527 Old Mill. First of all, I want to thank all the council members who met with me and others, and City Manager Bellman and staff for sitting down and discussing the issue. I'm addressing issue 5.7 on your agenda, which is the entertainment licenses. I'm not going to, the actual information that was discussed with all of you is in your agenda packet, so I'm not going to delve into any of those items at all. I'm just going to make a couple observations regarding the document I received earlier today, which is the resolution that you also have in your packet. The first comment I'll make is I'm kind of, I still don't understand why, and these are my words, entertainment licensed businesses are being targeted for a chargeback of costs for police protection that we pay for in our property taxes, income taxes, personal property taxes, all the taxes that we pay. I took a quick look once again because the data came in yesterday or today, and I just looked at the page that had liquor licensees in the city and calls for services, and I just looked at the first page, and 70% of the total call volume had nothing to do with entertainment licenses. They were non-entertainment liquor licenses. I find it strange that the 70% aren't given the same treatment as the 30%. That's my first observation. Historically, there has been a difficulty in the recording of calls to the East Lansing Police Department as to who they should be, we'll call allocated to. I'll give you a quick example. If you have an altercation between P.T. O'Malley's and Beggar's Banquet in the alley, there is no address for the alley, so the police officer picks one, picks P.T. O'Malley's. And it's an automatic allocation to P.T. O'Malley's. I'll give you one that's even a little stranger because it involves the data that you've been given to us and given to yourselves by the city. And that is, I looked through every single call attributed to Harper's, and I was perplexed because I couldn't understand how 2 police cars were able to go up the steps of Harper's and inside the front doors to make a traffic stop. Maybe someone can explain that to me. Because they're allocating anything that happens on the block between 7-Eleven and the old LS Taco or the Black Cat. If it's there, it's 131 Albert. And there's no way to know because the call doesn't tell you that. The call description or the edification of what the call was for is just based upon what the police officer wants to write in when he makes that call. And with regard to chargebacks, I'll try to hurry this up. I have no idea how any business could budget for chargebacks that are going to occur in the future that you have no idea will or will not occur or how much they cost. Will copies of the police reports being given with each chargeback invoice? so that someone can determine the legitimacy of such a chargeback? That it's not a traffic stop in front of your business? Or for parking? And I just have one question, and that is the chargeback money, if it's ever collected, going to the general fund? Just like to know the answer to that question. And lastly, it talked about Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, St. Patrick's Day, athletic tournaments in the city, and bar crawls. I understand why someone might say, oh, St. Patrick's Day, worst day for police calls, and it's all the bar's fault. It's funny, I looked through the data last year, not one
You have
police
30
call
seconds
on
remaining.
St. Patrick's Day. So I find it interesting why it would be included. And I also find it interesting what the entertainment licensees have to do with athletic tournaments that Michigan State holds. We have no control over them. We do nothing with them. But yet we're supposed to pay overtime on chargebacks for what the city has to do because of athletic tournaments? I find that rather odd. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Anybody in the queue?
There is nobody in the queue.
Okay. We move on to communications from the mayor and council members, starting to my left. Mr. Altman, Dr. Altman.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to share some impressions of a police ride-along that I went on a couple of Fridays ago. It was the 21st of February. It was the Michigan State game, so it was a busy night. I spent about 6 hours, and I'm grateful to the officer who was willing to cart me around for 6 hours. But I also got to watch several officers in action throughout the night. It was a busy night, as you might imagine, and several of the calls were of the kind where everybody goes. So I got to see not just one person in action, but several, under several different scenarios also. And I wanted to share two basic types of impressions. The one is that the officers I observed are skilled professionals. There were a lot of skills, diverse skills on display. They see things and hear things that I can't see or hear. They have situational awareness that they're trained in that is not something that lay people share. Decision-making skills. So there was one call in particular, it was a mental health call. And it was a pretty fraught situation. So the subject of the call may or may not have been a danger to themselves. That's a tough call to make. Either way, there's high stakes involved. And so you want to get it right. And you're doing it under duress because there's family and friends there, and they're at odds with each other about what should happen. And of course, they're in distress also. And to bring about a reasonable resolution, I think under those circumstances, takes real leadership and takes quick thinking and good thinking. And that's what I saw on display. The other thing that I kind of walked away from this experience with is a sense that every single officer treated every single person they interacted with enormous respect. And that includes, and it didn't depend on the situation, of which there were a lot of different situations. So there was the unhoused person who was passed out drunk on private property. They had to escort that person off the private property. But it was cold out. And so a couple hours later, they went and they checked on this person. They found him, and he wasn't doing so hot, so they called the medics. And that meant that he could get warm, and it meant that people on the ramp could use a stairwell again. So sort of an expensive solution to that particular problem, but that wasn't their issue. They made what looked like the right call under the circumstances, and they had the welfare of this person in mind when they responded. And it also includes the guy who charged them, okay, the guy who came after them when they caught him prowling in somebody's backyard in response to a call. Got him back to the jail. He blew a .24, so he was out of control, but he got respectful treatment. So it looks to me like we have the right people with the right skills working for us. And I am looking forward to full staffing at ELPD so that we can see more of these folks around town. Thank you.
Mr. Meadows.
No report this evening, Mayor.
Councilperson Watson.
I wanted to say thank you to the art commissioners that came today. We don't hear from you much at East Lansing City Council, but I love the arts, and thank you for the breakdown that helped me understand it even further. Also, I appreciate what I've learned talking to some businesses about the relationship with policing and with the restaurants and around the licensing fees. And so I say this every now and again, but my door is open to not only meeting with our businesses, but also just with anybody in the community that wants or has something they want to talk about or share. I'm quite textable, and then we can find a location. Next, I wanted to wish the best to our Trojans. Our East Lansing High School boys are playing right now in the regional semifinals, and I hope they win, and I hope we see something else, another game in another couple days. But just congratulations to East Lansing High School and the varsity Trojans, and best of luck. And lastly, I wanted to mention, as we look at increases here and there, and, you know, for example, people talk about egg prices. The prices, I am a family of myself and my 3 children, or 2 children, depending on whether or not the oldest is there or not. And my prices don't change when I go to the grocery store. And so the price that I pay based on the amount of money that I have or don't have doesn't change as it might in a structure that considered the different people's incomes who still have to head out the door. People talk about their shock with the increase of grocery prices. I've seen my grocery receipt increase, and again, it's not at the same rate that I'm getting any raises or adding to my income. Sometimes there's questions about affordability in the city of East Lansing, and that's where I'm going with this. I also have read recently the amount of extra money that single people have to pay because we are adults who live on their own, but I've said before, I believe this is a dual income society. And so it's one thing when we're thinking and talking about dual incomes moving into town or trying to move into town, and then it becomes even different when it's single people or people who make less amount of money. And so East Lansing homes sell for great value, and it's great for those of us that own. But I have friends, couples, as well as single adults who life changes and they can no longer afford to live here. And so I wanted to talk about that during my time. And thank you very much.
Councilperson Singh.
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay, I don't have anything. City Manager.
I just want to thank the businesses that took the time to provide input on 5.7 the business license fees, especially Pat Riley, Thomas Dewey, Bramson, Michael Kruger, and Scott from Lou and Harry's, who called or attended meetings just to share their thoughts on the various recommendations that were going back and forth over the last 4 or 5 meetings. So thanks.
Okay. City Attorney.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Mr. Bellarmine.
Item 3.1 is approve the following appointments or reappointments to boards and commissions. A is to appoint Rafael Villares to the Arts Selection Panel for a full term ending December 31st, 2027. 3.2 is approve a purchase of a global positioning system GPS unit for the engineering department in an amount of $31,874 and authorize city manager to sign. 3.3 is approve an expenditure of up to $100,000 for easements necessary for the river and water edge sewer district improvements, including the Milford Gunson improvements and the Wilmarth Woodmere Relief Project. 3.4 is approve a 2-year service agreement with CBiz benefits and insurance services in an amount not to exceed $25,970 for the required reporting under GASB number 75 and authorize city manager to sign. 3.5 is approve a street closure request on Bogue Street from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sunday, April 27th for the Izzle Run Walk Roll. 3.6 is approve a street closure request for the East Lansing Art Festival for Albert Avenue from Albert Avenue Garage to Bailey Street, M.A.C. Avenue, from the East Lansing Marriott entrance to the Grand River Avenue intersection, Grove Street, from south edge of the 7-Eleven entrance in the Bailey Surface parking lot, and approve the use of amplified sound and regulation of arts festival vendors from 5 a.m. on May 16th, 2025 to 10 p.m. on May 18th, 2025. 3.7 is approve a letter of support to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for 333 Valley Court, formerly 341 through 345 Evergreen Avenue redevelopment project, 2025 housing tax credit application. And from tonight's amended agenda, 5.6 is consideration of a request from 213 Ann Street, owner St. Anne LLC, to defer the vote on the special use permit to the March 18th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, Ms. Watson, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second? Second, Meadows? Okay, moved by Watson, seconded by Meadows. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Next item is a public hearing. Public hearing to consider a request from Arnulfo Ramirez of Los Tres Amigos, Brookfield LLC for a special use permit located at 1351 East Grand River Avenue. The applicant requests alteration of the interior spaces for 2 new restaurants, the Morning Post and Dinolfo's, with alcohol service in the existing building and a modified patio. The property is zoned B2 Retail Sales Business District. Staff, please.
Good evening, Alicia Wrighton, Planning Department. As indicated, this is a request for a special use for alcohol service and increased capacity for the patio for the Morning Post and Dinolfo's. The original special use permit was approved by City Council on April 18th, 2011, with condition 3 providing for capacity of the restaurant not to exceed 154 patrons. This application, the applicant is proposing 175, which includes the patio, which is an increase of 21 persons. To break it down for you, the Morning Post has seating for 91 individuals, Dinolfo's is 56, and 28 for the patio, which is intended to be year-round, not seasonal. The max capacity is based on the fact that the building code views this unit as 1, so it's the total capacity. If they individually use the patio, the Morning Post would be 119, and then Dinolfo's would be 84. Because the restaurants share the primary entrance, again, the building code determines the occupancy, but they do operate separately with different hours of operation. They will not overlap in business hours due to the size of the shared kitchen and switching over the meal service to the seafood and chop house, which serves steak, pasta, and so forth from the breakfast menu. So the Morning Post is typically 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Dinolfo's will be 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. Wednesday through Saturday, with a request for special occasion operations till 2 a.m. The Planning Commission did recommend approval on January 22nd. The DDA recommended approval on January 23rd. Previous applications had asked about seating in the DDA areas. This unit is not in the core of the DDA. The total in the DDA core is 4,183 occupants. The non-core is 1,630. By adding an additional 21 patrons for this particular unit, that would bring a total overall count to 5,834. This is not a seat count, but occupancy. We don't actually have a specific seat count at this time because occupancy is the maximum and seating is usually just listed as the minimum.
Okay, questions from council? Dr. Altman?
You'd mentioned the Morning Post hours were going to be 8 to 2. There's a memo from Dan Tyler later in the packet that says the hours will be from 7 to 3. I'm not sure it really matters, but I just wanted to clarify which it was.
At last meeting at the Planning Commission, they indicated that the patrons are dictating the service from 8 to 2.
Okay. And then So I'll comment on this point later, but the conditions from the previous SUP identified later, those will remain in force, right?
Yes.
So that means, for example, that the outdoor service area shall be vacated by midnight daily?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I therefore declare that the public hearing to consider a request from Arnulfo Ramirez of La Tres Amigos Brookfield LLC for a special use permit located at 1351 East Grand River Avenue. The applicant requests alteration of the interior spaces for 2 new restaurants, the Morning Post and Dinolfo's, with alcohol service in the existing building and a modified patio. The property is zoned B2 Retail Sales Business District. The public hearing is open. Anybody want to address us in this public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
They're the applicant.
I understand that, so, okay. I'll close the public hearing. Back to the council for any further thoughts, questions, anything? Dr. Altman.
I'll say I think this is a good proposal, and I wish the owner luck, and I'm happy to vote tonight, but normally our procedure is to wait 2 weeks, but if people want to think about it, that's fine. But
Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll move ahead. Thank you, staff.
so I'll go ahead and move approval of the request from Arnulfo Ramirez of Los Tres Amigos Brookfield LLC for a special use permit located at 1351 East Grand River Avenue, as outlined in the packet.
Second.
Okay, well, if I'm required to make a vote tonight, it's going to be no, because I want more time to study this, including the special use permit changes. But if we're going to proceed to a vote, okay, any further questions or anything on the vote?
I'll just indicate that while I think this is a great move for that particular location, and I do also wish you luck, I think that we need to honor our 2-week, our special, the way that we've been doing this for a lengthy period of time, which is to give ourselves some time to take a look at this. For instance, I want to consider the conditions and the way that they're written. They seem to be just a reflection of what's required in the ordinance. So I just want to see if there are other conditions that might also apply here. So.
Okay, any further?
Mayor, is it in order for me to withdraw my motion?
Always.
Thank you. Then I would like to withdraw my motion with the consent of the seconder.
I will second.
You'll consent?
So I will consent.
Okay.
And may I make comment?
Yes.
I've been to the Morning Post, been excited ever since I saw that it was coming, saw that you all have opened. It's great in there. The food was great. I encourage you all to also, as you're thinking about it, go sit there. It's the closest restaurant in the closest area to my walking spaces. And so hopefully we'll see more of you all. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it'll be back on the agenda for our next regular meeting. Okay, thanks for coming. Okay, business agenda. Item 5.1, consideration of additional PACE officers. Yes, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor Brookover, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. I am Interim Chief Jen Brown. First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Altman for your comments tonight. Those are appreciated. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to discuss the police department's opportunity to hire 2 additional part-time PACE officers. As you know, parking and code enforcement, also known as PACE, is responsible for parking enforcement and the investigation and resolution of ordinance violations that ensure the safety, welfare, and appearance of our neighborhoods. PACE officers respond to citizen complaints, conduct investigations, as well as initiate enforcement. Essentially, PACE officers keep our city beautiful for our community members, employees, and visitors. One of the strategic priorities of the East Lansing Police Department is to build strong neighborhoods through community policing and crime reduction. The PACE team not only provides enforcement throughout the city, but also educates and builds relationships with community members and businesses. Over the past year, the East Lansing Police Department has had a very difficult time filling 2 part-time vacant PACE positions. However, due to a recent uptick in applications across all positions within the department, we now have a pool of 4 excellent candidates. In 2024, PACE wrote a total of 1,246 code violations and over 20,000 parking tickets. The total revenue generated from code violations and parking tickets was over $600,000. This revenue does go to the courts. The department is currently budgeted for 1 full-time PACE officer, 1 full-time PACE secretary, 1 full PACE officer, and 6 part-time PACE officers. Adding the 2 additional part-time PACE officers would cost approximately $35,000 per officer per year. These officers are always busy. If they're not responding to calls, they can be focused on self-initiated activity. So tonight, I'd like to recommend that City Council approve hiring 2 additional part-time PACE positions to start immediately.
Okay, questions for Chief? Dr. Altman?
So I had some questions about just the arithmetic. So you just read out the statement from the agenda item packet that says 1 full-time PACE officer, and then 1 full-time PACE secretary, and then 1 full-time PACE officer. Are there?
Sorry, it's 1 full-time PACE supervisor and then 1 PACE supervisor.
Okay. So then the other question I had was, it says we're currently staffed with 2 part-time officers,
Correct.
but then we're budgeted for 6 part-time officers, right? So can't you just hire those 4 people?
We're short 2 positions that we're slotted for.
Oh, I see. Got it. So we're budgeted for 6. We've taken up. Wait, no. We're budgeted for 6 part-time PACE officers.
We would like to be budgeted for 6 part-time. So we have currently 4 part-time PACE officers that we're asking for positions for.
Sorry. The department is currently budgeted for 1 full-time PACE officer, 1 full-time PACE secretary, 1 full-time PACE supervisor, and 6 part-time PACE officers.
Okay, I think that's a typo. Because, again, we're asking for 2 additional part-time beyond
Okay.
what we're currently budgeted for.
So we're budgeted for 4.
Correct.
We've got 2 on staff.
Correct.
You want to hire 4, so you want approval for 2 new positions.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bellman, can you clarify any of that?
No, I couldn't say it any clearer.
Well, what's in the current budget?
What's in the current budget is
Yes.
for 4 part-time positions. We have 2 already hired. We have 4 additional candidates, so they want to expand from 4 to 6.
Okay, so you want to add 2 part-time positions to the current budget allocation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I understand now. Thanks for bringing it up, Eric. Yes, ma'am.
So the 35 for each position, the ask is that it come out of general funds.
Correct.
And I'm not sure if you heard, but I was asking Mr. Bellman earlier the other day about the trajectory of filling positions for the past 7 years. My interest is using your public safety money to cover the costs of these 2 part-time. And my logic is the police force remains with unfilled positions, yet there's been money allocated. And so my question right now is, for the past 7 years, if you have the information regarding police openings and police fillings, like what's the numbers, so I can understand how close we've ever gotten to the full number.
I received an email this morning from our HR team asking that specific information, so I don't have that with me tonight, but I can say that for the first time in a number of years, I know for the year plus that I've been here, we are actually having enough police candidates to fill those empty positions. And I do believe within the next 6 months, we will be at our full capacity for police officers.
Who has the email? I'd like to know what it says.
The email was directed at me. I can grab my phone. It just simply asks the number of officers that we've had over the years.
And did it mention the number of openings versus the number of filled positions? This time that I've been on council, the police officers have not been fully staffed.
Correct.
And so, just again, I don't think it should come out of general funds because of my thought process, that there's dollars there that can be swapped out for police officers.
And that may be the case until July 1st, but again, I would expect that we'll be at our full capacity by that time.
Just curious, what's changed? What do you think has changed for that? Because, like I said, for a long time, they haven't been filled.
I think there's been a lot of changes in the city that have been communicated to individuals in our community, and now they have an interest in becoming a member of the East Lansing Police Department.
That's awesome. The next thing I want to make a comment about in general, I see it as antiquated to want to make money off of ruining people's days with parking tickets. I would be in support of one PACE officer, but to rationalize it as we can make more money by ticketing people who park over sidewalks or sit too long, I don't agree with that logic. I believe that there's other ways that we can make more money as a city that also brings smiles to people's faces and not frustration.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
I was curious to build out to two additional part-time staff. Are there, I don't want to use the word neglect, but with the current staffing, do you feel like we're missing some safety precautions?
I don't know about safety precautions, but we're certainly missing calls. We get dispatched to a number of requests for PACE, and those calls are often held in the queue because we simply don't have the staff to respond to those. If they are a priority type situation, we often have to dispatch an officer, which again, we're already thin in terms of our staffing on the road for patrol officers, which again, provides a difficult situation for us to balance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I move that we approve the hiring of 2 additional part-time PACE positions to start immediately.
Second.
Moved by Brookover, seconded by Altman. Discussion.
Yeah, I've got just a couple of comments.
Sure.
Yeah, I do agree that, I'd like to look at this, and I wish we weren't relying on any of the revenues with regard to the writing of these tickets. And, ideally, what police activity does is it deters people from actually violating the law, and that's the objective of it. PACE, though, also is the, I won't say sworn officer, but a element in the neighborhoods that is not necessarily seen other than as PACE officers. In other words, police cruisers don't necessarily go through our neighborhoods on a daily basis, but we often see a PACE officer going down the street, because it isn't just parking that is enforced. There are a number of other things that happen, particularly in our close-in neighborhoods, that require PACE activity and that we get calls on. I think we've been down on PACE officers for a lengthy period of time, and the closer we get to having an adequate number, I think we'll see a reaction within the community more in compliance with the laws, and probably a reduction of these revenues that are based on people's bad actions, I guess, in some respect. So I'm very supportive of this, and I'm glad that we're starting to see more applications.
Okay, any other
You
discussion?
and me both.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor, could I
Go ahead.
comment briefly? So I think it's sorely needed. We need more enforcement of unlawful stopping along Grand River Avenue. That's been a frustration of people for years. And I spend a lot of time on Grand River Avenue because my day job is there, and I see people just pulling up and stopping, and there's no repercussions, and buses have to pull around them, and it's just a big hassle. And also in the service alley behind Grand River Avenue, people park there, and they cause all kinds of inconvenience and safety issues. We also got an email a while ago from somebody unhappy that there was snow and ice on the sidewalks, and we can't possibly enforce that unless we have more people having time to drive around and give tickets. And then the other thing that's important is I think PACE is an important feeder for police cadets, essentially, because people can spend some time in PACE. Everybody gets to know everybody, gets to know the environment, gets to know each other, and that's probably going to help with recruiting also. So I think this is a great move.
Okay, any other comment?
Can I just make one more comment on the numbers, just to be crystal clear? So we currently have four part-time PACE officers working. We're allotted 6, but we have 4 applicants, so that would need the addition of 2 additional spots.
Okay. All those in favor of the,
I'm sorry. I've
go ahead.
Just again, I will be voting no on this. When I'm hearing that we're looking at 100% police officer positions filled, plus adding an additional 2 PACE officers, it concerns me that we're landing in that spot again of over-policing our community. I don't think we should bank and be proud of making and increasing revenue because we can ticket people until 3 a.m. or, again, we can ticket people for parking over sidewalks, and we can over-police in that capacity too, even though they're called PACE officers. And as council liaison for the Independent Police Oversight Commission, there is discretionary that's given to our PACE officers as well that sometimes becomes problematic, where 2 cars get skipped but 1 car gets ticketed, as well as I'm recalling some people that have come forward about their grass being such and such amount of length, and so now we're adding to the PACE officers being there to go ahead and over-ticket our community. It's just not a value of mine, so I will be voting no on this.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1 with Watson dissenting. Item 5.2, consideration of a contract with ENG, period, for the as-needed professional surveying services in an amount not to exceed $100,000 and authorize the city manager to sign. Yes, sir.
Good evening, council. Stephen Clayton, DPW Engineering. Staff is requesting city council approve a contract with ENG for surveying services for an amount of $100,000. So for our projects, for our larger projects, we'll have a RFP issued, and the surveying will be included with a design consultant. For very small projects, internal or sometimes with asset management or different surveying needs, we'll do it in-house. But for the kind of middle ground where we have internally designed projects, but the surveying we don't have the capability to do, we don't have a professional surveyor on our staff, this kind of covers that need, that gap. So we issued an RFP on January 23rd. We received 12 responses. Out of those 12, which were rated according to our RFP selection process, ENG was the top firm, and so the financial impact is that this money would come out of the major street, local street, water and sewer, same as kind of the as-needed engineering would kind of reflect similar. And so that's, staff is requesting approval of that contract.
Okay, questions for staff?
I'll move approval. Or authorize the city manager to sign a contract with ENG for the as-needed professional surveying services in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Could you give us an example of the type of in-house project where we would use this, just to sort of
One of them that's coming up is the local streets resurfacing project on Abbott Parkside neighborhood. We had one recently for the Walnut Heights. So that's an example of a local street project that we wouldn't have the ability to do in-house, but we contract that out.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
With the multiple funds that you're pulling these dollars from for the $100,000 cost, was that planned within those funds?
There was not a budgeted line item for as-needed surveying because typically in the past these as-needed surveys have come out of the as-needed engineering contracts. So we did budget for as-needed engineering So this is kind of it's not budgeted, but it does come out of the same funding source as what we've typically used in the past with the as-needed engineering, if that makes sense.
Is this a new cost to the planned budget?
Yes.
Phone a friend.
Over the last several years, we've been short on engineering staff, so we've hired out the full design inspection of projects. And now that we've got some staff engineers on board, we're trying to go back to some of the more straightforward projects, hiring out the surveying, which we can't do, specialized equipment and skills, and then doing the design in-house and the inspection in-house. So it's overall a cost savings because we're not hiring out the entire design and inspection. So the funds are there. We're just changing how we're spending them because we actually have engineers now.
That's helpful. Thank
It's a
you.
wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anything else? I've forgotten. Do we have a motion? And a second?
We do.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 5.3, consideration of a resolution to authorize the city manager to sign the cost-sharing agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for the Harrison Road Bridge Deck Reconstruction Project and approve a project contingency. Sir.
So that's me again. So for your consideration this evening, a resolution for the council. It's the Harrison Road Bridge Deck Reconstruction Project. This project was identified in a scoping report a few years back. The project is a deck rehabilitation project. So it's, just the deck, bridge deck, the approaches. It does not include the abutments, piers and all that. The project was submitted for the local bridge program rehabilitation and was awarded that grant. That covers 95%, between state and federal funding, covers 95% of the cost of the project. That would leave 5% local share. The city originally received a grant for $3,031,000 and then subsequently awarded the design to RS Engineering. We've come to the point where we are working with MDOT to let the project out in March, and they've given us this cost-sharing agreement that has to be signed as part of that. The project inspection and administration will be done by RS Engineering. We're planning to go out to construction this summer, so starting May and ending in August, obviously by the MSU school cycle. The project cost that you see there is increased a little bit between the time of the grant to the actual cost estimate. It's the same cost sharing. There's also the matching funds there that you see is the $251,103. Out of that, that's really split between the 164 or approximately 165,000, that's the local share, and then the 68,000, which covers the amount, it's utility work that's going to be reimbursed by consumers. So that's where you see that 251,000 that we're asking for, plus a 15% contingency in case the bids come in higher than expected. So the total local share is 289,000 that we're asking. That would come out of the Major Street fund.
Okay, and this is the Harrison Road Bridge down by Brody Group, Kellogg Center, corner of Kalamazoo Street?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Bellman, do you recommend that we approve this?
I do.
Okay. Any other questions from, yes, sir?
Why is this not MSU paying for this?
It's our road, our bridge.
Right, but there are other roads that run through MSU that MSU resurfaces.
Yep. So it just kind of falls within jurisdiction. This is the city's jurisdiction.
Okay. When you went over the amounts that go into the 250,000, you mentioned that there's some money that's going to be reimbursed by consumers. That means at some point in the future, we can expect income from consumers to show up in the budget? Is that how that works?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
When did we last do this bridge?
It was widened in 1990.
It feels more recently, but maybe, sorry.
Ron?
I've gotten to that point in my life where it all seems more recent.
Yes.
but-
Yeah, we actually had some issues with it where we actually had some holes develop where you could see water underneath, and we had we were waiting for this funding. It's a very competitive process to get the bridge funding, and so we were trying to do an intermediate patch, but it was an extensive patch that we had to do because there was a significant issue there. So we did. Might have been 2 summers ago.
Okay.
What seemed like a significant project, but it was just a patch job to hold it together, waiting for this funding to come through.
Okay.
I apologize. I forgot about that project, but yes.
So did I.
She hasn't progressed to the point I have, where she's actually correctly remembering something fairly recently,
My
as
brain
opposed
is-
to the fact that I will not be able to remember if I fed the cat dinner tonight before I came over for our closed session. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, any other questions? Dr. Altman?
So if Harrison Road along there is in our jurisdiction, does that mean that we could consider a road diet there also?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to authorize the city manager to sign the cost-sharing agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation for the Harrison Road Bridge Deck Reconstruction Project and approve a project contingency as presented to council this evening.
Do we have a second? Second from Watson, motion by Meadows. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank DPW for, pursuing these grant requests because as mentioned, they are competitive processes and really great when we can leverage state and federal funding for these projects.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 5.4, consideration of a request by the Arts Commission to allow proposed changes to Ordinance 1339% for art ordinance be drafted by the city attorney. I think, would it be correct, Mr. Bellman, to say that this is a motion, if we get to a motion, it's a motion to authorize the city attorney to prepare proposed changes to the ordinance, and then those changes would come back to us in the usual format for approval, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Heather Mahano. I'm the Art Festival Arts and Stewardship Coordinator for the City of East Lansing, and I'm here today as the staff liaison to the Arts Commission. The Commission has been working to review and refine their processes as they complete their 5-year cultural arts plan, which our chairperson mentioned earlier. As a part of this process, they reviewed Ordinance 1339, which is also known as the Percent for Art Ordinance. This ordinance defines art in East Lansing. It lists allowable public art fund expenses and is the ordinance that requires new developments and large remodels to include 1% of their budget, up to $25,000 for art on their building, or cash to the public art fund. The commission sought counsel from Attorney Chubb and would like to see some updates to the ordinance that expand the definition of art, clarify allowable expenses, and bring this ordinance in compliance with the zoning code, which our vice chair mentioned is not currently the case. This item today is the first step to updating the ordinance. If approved, council will see the red line document 2 more times for public readings before final approval of the ordinance is requested.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Mr. Meadows?
I don't have a question for staff, and I'm
Yes.
very supportive of this. I just want to point out that any member of this council can ask the city attorney to prepare an ordinance. You just need to let the other council members know that you've done that. And but I also like this process because it gives us a chance to take a look at the proposed changes from the commission, and these are very good changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Yes.
And your motion is?
I'll move for our city attorney to move forward to draft changes to the requested changes to ordinance number 977.
Okay. I'm looking at ordinance 1339.
Oh, oops.
I may be wrong.
1339. I was looking at the prior.
Do we have a second? Second from Watson. Any further discussion? Although, yes, sir.
Say that I appreciate the due diligence. I do think this process is a good process, and I think the amount of work that the Arts Commission put into this is evident from this, and it's really helpful to have all the context and to make sure that people were really paying attention to the details.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.5, consideration of a resolution authorizing notice of intent to issue revenue bonds to finance capital improvements at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, WRRF, and improvements to the sewer collection system in an amount not to exceed $51 million. Staff.
Council, Ron Lacoste, Director of Public Works. As the mayor mentioned, you have before you a consideration of a resolution to announce the city's intent to issue revenue bonds in the amount of $51 million for improvements at the city's water resource recovery facility and the city's sewer collection system. These projects, there's two projects under this bond. One is sewer improvements in the River, Water's Edge, Woodmere area, which is traditionally the Cedar Village area. Sewer separation also goes north of Grand River into the Gunson and Milford area, separating sewers. Also upgrades water main, things like that. And then improvements to the WRF. This is the fifth project at the WRF, and if you've gone out there, it's a state-of-the-art facility, but the control building is not, and that was done on purpose to do all of the workings of the plant out in the facility first, because it changes electrical, moves cabinets, things like that affect the admin building or the control building. And now this is kind of the final piece of the major work to bring that facility up to the standard that it should be. So this will upgrade the lab, upgrade obviously a lot of the staffing spaces. We have ADA compliance issues there. We don't have a female locker room at the facility, things like that. So it'll be a lot of upgrades at that plant along with efficiency improvements. So it's upgrading the control facility to match the state-of-the-art facility we now have outside that building. The sewer portion of it, so there's about $42.2 million estimated in eligible cost, and the sewer portion, about 80.8% of that is eligible. The WRF component, 100% of that is eligible. Of the ineligible part of the sewer project, we have about $3.7 million in sewer. We have $764,000 in water, 91 in local streets, and 71 in major streets. We will likely be going for a capital improvement bond for the sewer and water portion of the ineligible. So that would be somewhere in the 4.3 million, depending on bids. Probably go as high as 5 just to give us a little cushion there. So that'll fund the ineligible portion. The eligible portion will be paid $13.5 million or so by the city, and $1.2 million by Meridian Township, who's got a component of some of the sewers in that project. The WRF facility, by contract, 40% of those payments will be made by MSU, 33.33% East Lansing, and 26.67%. Did I say that wrong? Sorry, 33.3% East Lansing, 26.67%. I'm getting confused, sorry. 33.3% Meridian, got to slow down. 26.67% East Lansing, apologize for that. So with that, any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Bellman, do you recommend that we approve this?
I did.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion. I move we authorize notice of intent to issue revenue bonds to finance capital improvements at the Water Resource Recovery Facility and improvements to the sewer collection system in an amount not to exceed $51 million.
Is there a second? Second from Meadows, I think. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We then move to the last item on our agenda as amended, item 5.7. Thank you, Ron. Consideration of the approval to amend business license fees for amusement, video arcade, dance hall, entertainment, restaurant, and takeout stores, and repeal the moratorium on same. Mr. Belleman?
So this has been a lengthy process, starting with the moratorium established in May of 2024, to us having our first discussion on alternate fee schedule at the November 19th, and then we held a discussion-only meeting in January. This recommendation was brought to you on February 4th, and then council asked that it be deferred to this meeting to give businesses an opportunity to look at the suggested changes. So the fees are being recommended to be reduced for amusement video arcade to $50, which is the cost of processing that fee or that license. Dance halls, restaurants, takeout stores are being recommended at a flat fee of $200, which provides for $150 for the fire department's annual inspection, safety inspection of those businesses, and $50 for administrative processing of the licenses. Entertainment is being proposed to be actual costs for police responses, and I think the policy resolution that was shared with all of you today gives a greater explanation of that process. So the DDA at its meeting last Thursday appropriated in its FY26 budget, preliminary budget, $200,000 to offset police department overtime costs when they are dedicated to the downtown. So there's a lot of references about how other businesses with liquor licenses have greater calls. And I try to explain that those calls are general patrol responses, and what we're trying to address here through the business license is where we're dedicating additional police officers during certain times of the week to the downtown entertainment district. And that last year in 2024 ranged at about $196,000 of overtime. So the DDA's agreed, again, in fiscal year 26 to cover the first $200,000. But if overtime exceeds that, the businesses that call for service would be billed the actual costs of those officers responding. I think what was explained that Thursday, Friday, Saturday are typical nights that we have large crowds in downtown. St. Patrick's Day, athletic events, and bar crawls may not fall on those Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and that's why they were specifically called out. So when you come to the NCAA March Madness, the playoff national championships on Monday night, if that results in a large turnout downtown, police department will assign additional officers to ensure a safe environment, and those are the overtime costs that we're asking those businesses downtown that benefit from those large crowds to be billed for those services if it exceeds $200,000.
Okay, questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I hate to bring up that I've been on the council a long time, but this is the first time I've seen a so-called policy resolution establish fees. Fees are established in the budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution that's passed with the budget. And I'm wondering why we would do this now rather than do it in the way that it has been in the past. And one of the questions I have is whether this budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution is the required methodology that has been in effect for this community for a lengthy period of time, either by statute or by, generally accepted accounting principles or any of the other methodology that might be out there that requires us to do it in a certain way. Seems like since we're not getting rid of the moratorium at this point in time, why wouldn't we be just doing this with the budget in the manner that we've done it in the past? Even the entertainment licenses in the past, in that budget resolution, have had categories to establish that there are different fees under different circumstances, generally related to the population of the particular facility that is being licensed. But I guess I'm not clear on why we would be doing this in a policy resolution. I don't even think it is a policy resolution, but it's titled as such. Why would we do it this way?
So the policy resolution, whether it's a policy resolution or resolution, as City Attorney and I had a discussion earlier today, council acts by two methods, motion or resolution. And so this is a resolution trying to clarify what was recommended in the agenda item report. It's not trying to supersede the method. These fees would be placed in that fee schedule that you adopt annually. But the moratorium that was placed back in May of '24 asked us to review just the fees for these 5 businesses categories. And so we did that, and my recommendation came back and is itemized in this resolution to be exactly what's in the AIR that's before you in the agenda that was provided last week. So it states that, and it offers some additional clarity that the business owners were asking for. So it's ELPT responses shall be limited to Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, or on those St. Patrick's Day athletic tournaments in the city, or bar crawls that don't fall on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. Cost chargebacks shall be the calls regarding assaults, fights, unwanted guests, suspicious person, unknown trouble, obscene complaints, disorderly conduct, and noise complaints. Those are all taken from calls for service lists that have been provided either in today's agenda or prior agendas. Chargebacks would not be including medical responses, and beginning in fiscal year '26, which would be rolled in the fee schedule and reapproved as part of the budget, for amusement video arcades would be at $50, dance halls at $200, restaurants at $200, takeout stores at $200. So all this did was clarify those fees and then add the current licenses that have been issued would be void on June 30th, 25. It indicates that the moratorium you put in place would be repealed with tonight's motion.
Okay, but the policy resolution really doesn't do anything. Are you saying that what it says that in the budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution, these would be the things that we would then discuss at that point in time and either change or accept?
If you
This
choose
doesn't
to-
put anything into place. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. But it would provide staff the opportunity to structure that fee schedule. We've been talking about these fees since May of last year. We put all of those business licenses on hold. We haven't done anything, and you, and as council, have asked that this be brought back to you tonight with those recommended fees.
So a motion to approve this simply says, city manager, you may insert that into the proposed budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution, which council will then have an opportunity to actually fully review and either decide to go in this direction or not.
You have, yes, the opportunity to review that annually.
Okay.
Mr. Chubb, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I think that what Robert stated is accurate, where there are a lot of spaces within the fee schedule that relate simply to actual costs accrued, and when this one is a little bit more complex, I think it's good to have the policy resolution that relates back to how those actual costs are going to be accrued for these particular businesses. And then we also needed something to memorialize what we're doing with the current collected entertainment license fees, and with the potential, and with the moratorium that's in place right now, to show that we're not looking to collect them for the current fiscal year, and that this is what we'd be doing going forward.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Ms. Watson, did you?
All right, so I liked what you were saying. So am I hearing it right that we could talk about some things today and then we would see them during budget sessions and then we would make a final approval? Am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct.
Can we charge landlords for noise calls to their homes?
You mean, are we or could we?
Can we?
I think there needs to be a distinction between general police services and cost recovery for dedicated services. This is a cost recovery for dedicated services. We provide a lot of landlords, businesses, residential, general police protection. That's what their property taxes pay for. But when we dedicate 6 to 10 officers on overtime for certain events or weeks, days of the week, that's special requests, demand, and those costs should be passed on to the businesses benefiting from that dedicated service.
Do we have overtime because we're understaffed?
We do have overtime because we're understaffed. The
And we
overtime
haven't been
in
fully
the-
staffed for a
if-
long time.
If I may finish.
Go ahead.
So the current overtime incurred to date is $750,000 in that police department. $200,000 has been tracked specifically in providing overtime to the downtown businesses on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. That's all I'm trying to talk here, but yes, there is overtime associated with the vacancies. That is being absorbed by the general fund.
Is there a thought process to release the charge if we are fully staffed at the police department?
No, it's not my recommendation. My recommendation, if we continue to provide dedicated additional police presence downtown that exceeds the $200,000 or whatever annual amount the DDA appropriates, that we charge for those services to the businesses demanding those services.
All right, and in the summertime and winter break, isn't there less? Isn't there less police need?
Yes, and so that would be reflected in the overall overtime the department would incur as a result of the
But
lower demand.
okay, but there's a possibility that they could get charged only for those busy times, not for the summertime, if they make those certain types of calls, not in the wintertime when it's slower, if they make those certain type of calls.
That's correct. This is the chargeback would only occur if the overtime for the law enforcement for those dedicated days exceeds $200,000 that the DDA is willing to cover.
Okay. I've just got a few more questions and then I'll, be quiet for a little bit. What if a patron makes the call? Does the business get charged?
That is correct.
And what if a business has a problem with another business or a patron has a problem with a business, so they make a call? The business can still get charged?
They could.
All right. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, my last question. Do we ask our business owners to review footage for us, the police department?
We do.
Can they get a discount? Are they getting a discount for that time that it takes for them to go over hours of footage to find what is being requested of them at no charge?
They could submit a bill to the police department for that service if they chose.
Okay, that doesn't sound That doesn't sound fair, and that's just my opinion to everybody, not to you, Mr. Bellman.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the policy resolution identified as an add-on in our packet tonight. It doesn't have a number, so I'll just identify it as an add-on.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Anyone?
I just wanted to ask one final time before I say yes or no. We will be discussing this further during budgeting session, and they are not going to be receiving a yes today doesn't mean they're going to start being billed at this rate right now.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Discussion two is I will be voting yes on this. I think there should be something, but I don't think this is the right route. So I want to continue to talk about it. I'd love to close the book on it, but it's just not clicking right for me yet. So thank you.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I'll be voting yes on this too, and with the same thought that we're going to revisit this in a very short period of time, really. And I'm concerned about the idea of identifying certain types of things that you would be able to be billed for if the total cost of policing in the downtown exceeds $200,000, which is the budgeted amount of DDA, and there's no guarantee that that budget will be redone in 12 months, and we've already set a process there that would cost a lot of businesses a lot of money. I'd prefer to see a standard rate that relates to what we already have in the budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution from last year, which identifies a fee related to the number of individuals who are authorized to occupy the premises. So like we have a 0 to 50 is $100 a year, 126 to 150 is $400 a year. And I think as we move to larger venues, I think that's where we should be looking at a larger number, not related to the number of calls, but because of the number of individuals who are authorized to occupy the premises.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we had. That's the fee structure that we had, which we blew up last May without any warning and without any documentation. If I remember right, I actually made a motion at one of the meetings where we talked about this to go back to that original fee structure. And I don't think I had any takers on that. So, look, we charged staff with analyzing our fee structure to come up with something that was different, if any luck better. And the city manager has done that with an eye to fairness to taxpayers and the cost of policing to the city. And the city manager has also done his due diligence in terms of talking to the business community. Okay, they got an invitation to come to our discussion-only meeting. Nobody showed up. He sent letters out. He's met with some of the main stakeholders. And so I think we've covered our bases here. And I just want to point out that, so I get my trash hauled away for free, right? It's not for free. I pay taxes. This is Mayor Pro Tem's example. She gets credit for this. Unless I mangle it, in which case it's my fault. If I have more trash than fits in my trash can, I pay a fee. If I have a bulk item for pickup, I pay a fee. This mix of taxes and then fees for dedicated services is nothing new, and it helps keep it fair. And so I think the structure here is just fine. And I think we've put a lot of work into this. City manager's put a lot of work into this, and we're in danger now of going in circles. I will also take responsibility for asking for this policy resolution because I wasn't sure what exactly the recommendation was in the agenda item report. So I want all this stuff in one place so that everybody understands what we're actually thinking about doing here. The alternative was for me to spend 5 minutes reading a motion into the record, which wasn't going to make anybody happy. And so I think this is an improvement on that, because we can all read it and decide what it says. Thank you.
If I can just point out that what I'm proposing as a flat rate, whatever that might be, is not what was in the budget resolution last year. That was a per-person fee that was charged to each of the bars.
Okay, any other discussion? I'm going to vote against this motion. I'm sick and tired of trying to rationalize, with all due respect to everybody that's worked on this. There's been a whole lot of work done. I think this is something that was institutionalized years and years and years ago for different reasons than we're even talking about tonight. I'm sick and tired of dealing with this. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's equitable. I think the idea that certain businesses should be, in effect, I'm not going to use the word tax, but should be somehow responsible for certain types of services as opposed to other types of property owners is illogical to me. And so, with all due respect to everybody, I understand this is going to pass. I'm done with trying to assess fees and et cetera, in downtown East Lansing. And then when it comes up on the budget, I'm not going to vote for any of them when it comes up on the budget, if it comes up on the budget. So, having said that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion passes 4-1 with Brooke over in dissent. Okay, we are at the end of our agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Altman, seconded by Meadows. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Council, thank you for all your efforts tonight at both of our meetings to sort of figure out a path through the thicket. I appreciate it more than you know.